4 car safety features that aren't safe. Electronic parking brakes that can't be used as an emergency handbrake. Oh sweet handbrakes, how I miss you dearly. I never understood why this very simple and cheap mechanism had to be replaced by the dumbest thing ever that is probably harder to fix when it does break. Who am I kidding? This is definitely here because of planned obsolescence, I don't know. Regardless, what annoys me even more is that these e-brakes are marketed as a premium feature on higher end sports cars. Like, no, the higher performance my car, the more I want a normal handbrake, not an electronic parking brake. Whether it's for busting out a sick drift or more realistically using them as an emergency brake when a loss of traction occurs, especially during inclement weather. And don't tell me not to drive my car in rain, because cars are meant to be driven no matter the conditions, no matter what car it is, I don't care. Having said that, most electronic parking brakes cannot act as emergency brakes and cannot be activated while the car is moving at any speed, even 1 mile an hour. If you've ever tried pulling on these whenever your car is moving, some of them will literally just show on your dash, rejected, input rejected, input rejected. The argument that a lot of modern manufacturers make for no longer including handbrakes or emergency brakes is because they say that ABS systems won't lock up brakes as common as cars that didn't have ABS back in the 90s to early 2000s. The reality is, even with ABS and disc brakes, that is still all one complete assembly. Like, that's your main braking system. It's still nice to have a secondary braking system. I'm someone who firmly believes in redundancy and having more than one system as backup, especially in the case of something as important as slowing down. It's nice to have something else in case something goes wrong. And this isn't me being super boomer brained, because this isn't like a matter of nostalgia or engagement. I don't get any secret joy by pulling a handbrake. It's literally just the idea of it's a generally simpler component, which means easier to replace, easier to maintain, less likelihood of breaking in the first place. Secondly, it is just a better functioning component because it serves as both a parking brake and an emergency brake. And the thing with it being like a parking brake still is like the electronic parking brake isn't any easier to operate than a physical hand parking brake. So I really don't know why. Like, I guess it was just to make the center console area look sleeker. It's the same reason why companies are obsessed with removing levers and shift knobs in favor of like dials and buttons. And I think it's just overcomplicating things that never really need to be changed. And especially in this case, like I said, I really like having an emergency brake for the sake of redundancy. And the other neat feature of the old handbrake is that both the driver and passenger could pull it, whereas the new one can't be pulled by either of you while the car is moving, because again, it's not actually an emergency brake. I feel every day manufacturers keep forcing us to put more faith in the electronics and robots that drive our cars than our own skill and ability to drive the car ourselves. Not in a good way, and this is going to lead into the next entry. Lane keep assist. Sometimes these actually drive you towards the trouble, even keeping you out of the lane, as opposed to its literal name being lane keep assist. What frustrates me more about really any new tech feature, not just this one specifically, is when cars force you to drive with them on no matter what. Like, there's no ability to disable the feature in a menu or on the steering wheel or whatever. And in Honda's case, it will only temporarily let you disable some of these features, but every time you start the car back up, you have to remember to turn it off again. That's just frustrating. It might be the same with other cars that have lane keep assist, but I haven't had experience with any of those cars because none of the vehicles I own have it. Regardless, here's a story. One of my friends, he was driving his Honda, and I'm just, carpooling with him, sitting in his passenger seat, and a ladder fell out of the truck in front of us. And this happens all the time when you're in big cities. It's really frustrating, it's not fun, and obviously he went to swerve around it because duh, it's a ladder, you don't want it to pop your tire or possibly damage your undercarriage. But the lane keep assist was like, no, I'm smarter than you, and drove him right back into the ladder and burst a tire, and then we got stranded on the side of the road for like the next 3 hours. Good job, lane keep assist, you totally helped us there. The reality of these software is that they don't have eyes on them. They don't actually see what we see. They just have algorithms to merely predict what it thinks is correct 90% of the time, but the few times something different and even drastic happens, they have no adaptability, because obviously in the case of a ladder falling out of the truck in front of you, there are mere seconds between leaving the truck bed to possibly puncturing one of your tires. There is no time to dilly-dally and like run a whole new program that doesn't exist to train it on something that it's never even thought about being trained on. It is up to the human to quickly make the decision, I need to swerve around it. But the lane keep assist is like, what are you doing? The lines on the road are here, the lane is here, why are you leaving the lane? And it incorrectly just drove us right over it. So that was frustrating. It was not a good afternoon for him. Thankfully, I just took an Uber home. In another example, I have a friend who recently bought a brand new Civic Si. It's kind of a lemon, there's other problems with it, but again, he's also had similar issues and frustrations with its lane keep assist. So you know those rumble strips that are on the shoulder of every highway? If you ever driven like long distance, these are usually there to like wake people back up if they start start to drift to sleep. They also are just there to let you know when you're approaching the shoulder. Now, if you've driven literally any freeway for any amount of time, you'll notice that construction exists, and whenever highways are under construction, you'll notice that the lanes change over the formal rumble strips, and this also changes the lane pattern, meaning that they will even redraw the lines temporarily to a different lane pattern until they finish doing whatever maintenance they needed to do on that section of road. So my friend, they have lane keep assist on their Civic, like I said. It did not adapt to the new traffic pattern. Obviously, he has no way of knowing. Again, it doesn't have eyes. And we almost crashed into another car because of it, because the moment it felt the rumble strips, it started to tug away, because it's like, oh, what are you doing? You're about to leave the lane, not realizing that the lane pattern is entirely different now, and there's literally a car next to us, so it's pulling us into another car. And my friend fought the wheel. Thankfully, we didn't crash. Thankfully, like, it's not hard to fight it. Like, if you're aware that it's being completely stupid and that is fully intent on trying to drive you out of lane during those moments, you can then do the opposite and fully intend to keep the car where you think is the correct position. But what annoys me in the first place is just the fact that you have to make a different judgment of the input of the car, because the car is trying to fight you and think what it's doing is correct. Obviously, I'm able to fight that stupid poverty spec robot, so not this time, Skynet. You ain't getting me that easily. Oh ho ho. The next safety feature that has been entirely counterproductive, pedestrian bumpers. Okay, so these are actually safe, but the reason I'm including this in the video is because somewhere along the way we definitely got scammed here. Sports cars, supercars, and even normal sedans had to be outfitted with these ridiculous bumper extensions in order to pass crash safety regulations. Pop-up headlights and other protrusions were heavily regulated as well, as their sharpness could potentially harm pedestrians that were thrown onto the hood. And don't get me wrong, both these bumper protrusions and even those pop-up headlights issues, I've conceded defeat with that a long time ago. I understand that pedestrian safety is important, and I'm all for that. However, I do feel like we got scammed here, because meanwhile we have SUVs and light trucks. I mean, just look at the Cybertruck specifically. That thing is far sharper than any pop-up headlight assembly could ever hope to be, yet it can get away with completely mauling a pedestrian to death right on their center of mass. But we can't have a pop-up headlight on a car anymore, and we still have to deal with those bumper protrusions on normal sedans and sports cars and other vehicles like minivans and stuff, yet SUVs and light trucks aren't subject to it. Like, hell nah, we definitely got scammed here. There's no way that government thinks this is okay, but not that. Unfortunately, the large grille trend combined with aggressive angler hood lines have been statistically shown to increase pedestrian death, and not the jaywalkers. We're talking about innocent youth. Ryan F9 from Fortnite has a fantastic video that has gone over the increased and unfortunate lethality of these types of vehicle designs, and it's even sadder when you realize most of these cars with massive grills and super angular sharp hoods don't even need them, because their cooling systems and engines only take up like half the actual space, and they leave enough room for a full-grown man to stand in the engine bay. Oh, and don't try to blame pedestrians for their own deaths. They didn't magically die more in correlation to the exact time this unregulated big grille trend started. And again, it's not jaywalkers being responsible, it's mostly children dying. And believe it or not, most of them are looking both ways. You can only tell a kid to look both ways so many times before you realize that it's also the driver's responsibility, because a lot of these drivers with their super tall hoods can't even see kids when they're on the road. Or sometimes, let's not get cute here, guys. Come on, dumb drivers exist. We all know bad drivers exist. We all know bad drivers exist, right? And the reality is, even in a car, I don't trust every single driver, right? You drive defensively. So when you're a pedestrian, can you really always say it's the pedestrian's fault when there are literal cars that will actually end up on the sidewalk, which is a dedicated walkway for pedestrians? It can happen anytime, any day, and even as a driver, you should take this seriously, because even if you're like, oh, I don't walk, I'm never a pedestrian. Yes, you are, because in a parking lot, the few seconds it takes from car to building entrance is still subject to another dumb driver running you over. AKA, we are all pedestrians at some point of our commute, whether you realize it or not. But I'm serious, bro. Downtown parking lots are active PvP zones. Those 30 seconds outside your car is all those bozos need to mow us down. All to compete over getting a parking spot. And I swear human IQ and EQ collectively drops 50 points each time they step into a vehicle. Like most Americans, you would think they don't need to hear that, but unfortunately driving stupidly, it's more common than you think. And driving stupidly on your own is one thing, but putting kids and passengers' lives in danger, that's just disgusting. These people know better. The point I'm making is that cars will find a way to hit pedestrians regardless. Again, this is not just about jaywalkers. You cannot just always blame the pedestrians, especially when it's a kid who's looking both ways and they're just really short, and unfortunately that makes them very hard to see with how tall hoods are getting these days. Because of that, it's smarter for us to apply the same pedestrian safety standards that we have to cars and their bumpers to light trucks and SUVs. Because if crashes are gonna happen, and remember, we're not perfect, they're just statistically gonna happen. Even self-driving cars will crash, by the way, for anyone who's like, oh, well, computers will solve this problem. Everything will calculate everything the same. Don't underestimate people who don't do software updates. So there's gonna be someone who doesn't update their car when a new intersection is built, and their self-driving car will plow straight through the intersection and still hit a pedestrian. So self-driving, human, future, even flying car, no matter what, pedestrians will always still get hit because there's always going to be stupid people no matter what. I mean, this isn't me dunking on people for driving SUVs. If anything, you guys should be angry at your government and car manufacturers for using these stupid loopholes and then lying to you. I'm just the messenger. I'm not the one who designed your SUV. I'm just one of the many people who are now pointing out how flawed the laws regarding their safety are and how we collectively deserve better for ourselves and our future generations. Like I said, people always die. But if we can do things to mitigate risk, we should do those things. And in this case, they're already being done to normal vehicles. They just aren't subjected to all passenger vehicles, which is kind of strange since they all share the same road together. The final thing in this video is having a larger car. This is often marketed as a safety feature, and you already know that I'm in that mood again. I'm still not done ranting about big cars. More mass doesn't mean more safety. And while SUVs do indeed protect you more from a head-on collision, let's be real, as scary as that sounds, who's more likely to hit you on a day-to-day basis? The guy in the oncoming lane or the dude next to you? The way most consumers are these days is they buy things based on the worst circumstance, and that's how you advertise things to them, as they only think about one particular circumstance. Philosophy aside though, for anyone who does want to crunch the numbers, the various other types of accidents are more likely to happen than the one very rare catastrophic type of accident. So would I rather have a car that's designed for literally all situations if it means that it's 10% worse at surviving a head-on crash, but it's 20% better in every other circumstance? I would, because that's a net positive overall, as opposed to hardcore specking all of my talent points into one specific crash type at the cost of not being that good at other crash types like rollovers, side impacts, rear ends. Because I could show you several videos of SUVs hitting a smaller car and getting flipped up into the air and then rolling over several times, or even hitting a small tire on the road and getting rolled over several times, or trying to dodge a deer and getting rolled over. Are you starting to see the trend I'm getting at here? And again, this isn't me making fun of SUVs, this is me proving a point that you guys are getting cheated by the government and cheated by the automakers who are advertising a safe product, but they don't actually test that product for the so-called safety it's advertised for. Thankfully though, it's not all doom and gloom. The IIHS is doing a better job of self-regulating mini SUVs by basically straight up admitting, and they will literally name drop the company and vehicle model that fails their test.
3 vehicles earned marginal ratings in our new test. While we'd like to see improved performance from these vehicles, 4 vehicles earned our lowest rating of poor. They were the Chevrolet Equinox, Mazda CX-5, Mitsubishi Outlander, and Volkswagen Taos. None of the vehicles performed consistently in any of the test scenarios.
They deserve to get called out, because that's we kind of have to solve this problem on our own now. Like we can't trust our government to do it, we can't trust the automakers to do it, so we just have to shame them into doing it. To me, the tragedy here is that the government is clearly playing favorites, and lobbyists absolutely care more about money than your family's safety, which is how they get these loopholes to continue to exist. And even worse, the fact that they actively will continue to do nothing to increase their standards unless they're called out for it or unless a law is passed regarding it. So the point of this entry is kind of just understand the risks that are involved with buying certain vehicles. Basically, don't buy a big car and just assume, I'm safe forever now, I can be as stupid as possible, because unfortunately I do get a feeling that a lot of people do that. Like, nah, more weight doesn't always equal more safety and certain collision angles, and again, tons of other variables. The real advice to living a safe and happy life is don't drive super stressed, be calm, drive defensively, pay attention, and never act entitled to anything. Remember, graveyards are filled with people who had the right of way. There are times where I yield right of way just because I'm next to a total dumb idiot. I don't care if I'm driving a larger work truck with my coworker, even if it's not my car, if it's the company's car. If I can avoid accidents, I'm going to. It doesn't matter if the car that's next to me is smaller than me, like it's some Nissan Altima trying to give me the smoke. Why risk trying to challenge them, trying to ram them, just to assert my right of way if it comes at the cost of risking both of our lives? I never really understood that logic. Anyways, that's it for this video. Subscribe for more automotive content, like this video, and share to all the villagers you keep in your Minecraft basement. Yeah, you ain't slick. I know what y'all doing down there. Thanks for watching. See y'all next time. Blade Angel out.